coming in. Let me just remind everyone some basic housekeeping stuff. So if you drop off from the meeting, don't worry, just hop on in. You'll be able to rejoin it. We kindly ask everyone to mute yourself for now, but maybe we might have some good discussion time at that. If we do have that exercise, you can turn on your microphone. Otherwise, we will really appreciate everyone can mute yourself for now. If you have any question during the session, you don't really have to wait until the very last minute. You can feel free to leave the message at all time. Okay, now I am going to move on and then pass the floor to Donna.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I am just going to do a share screen for us. Okay. Let me also see. Can I just do a very quick check to see if we, oh no. Okay. Yeah, can I just do a quick check? Are we able to see my screen?
Yeah, we do see your screen right now, the presentation slides. Yes.
Right? Yes, the guest speaker series, right? The title and all.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Hey, thanks for having me back again, and thank you for joining us this morning. I think we share the same time, so that's great. It's early in the morning for both of us. So today, I just want to take a deeper look at using STW, okay, to look at See, Think, Wonder in the context of reading or teaching reading as well. Okay, so what I'll be covering for this morning, what we will be exploring will really be the STW, right, the framework. We also want to be inspired, right, by the wonders of reading, and then to think about, okay, now these two big constructs, right? How can we apply STW into reading itself? So that's what we're going to be covering in the morning. But before we go into that, I thought we should just recall what STW has so nicely packaged and put for us, so that we can have the same understandings about the technical terms as well, the terminology for today, for this morning. And of course, the first one is See, Think, Wonder, right? I think we all understand that it came up from a project from Harvard Graduation School of Education, but this is how they are looking at See, Think, Wonder. The goal of it is really to help the students just over here, right, to look slowly and closely, to develop thoughtful interpretations and stimulate broader curiosity, right? And I'm taking this from the See, Think, Wonder Challenge website, so I will be using the language as far as possible so that we can understand it better, because that's what we've been introduced to. So, and yes, we want to thank STW again for giving us these icons, packaging it so nicely so that we can remember, see, think, and wonder a bit better for us, right? With all the lovely icons at the top there as well. I think we're aware that they have also provided lesson plans for us, such as these lesson ideas, right, in terms of See, Think, Wonder. So if we have gone through these lessons, I think it gives us a better idea of the purpose of See, Think, Wonder and how we can explore and play around it and apply that thinking routine into our daily lessons. Okay. Last year, we also did a bit of a mapping of See, Think, Wonder to Bloom's taxonomy. And in the educational circle, Bloom's taxonomy is one of the more important frameworks still in terms of thinking about supporting students with regard to foundational cognitive levels of thinking, and then to advance them up towards more complex, more abstract, and more advanced ways of thinking, right? So foundational things like remember, okay, and then moving up all the way to the highest level where it's to create, right? From all that they are taking in. Okay, so we still want to keep this idea. What we did was also to map See, Think, Wonder in that frame as well. It's possible to think about See, Think, Wonder in that aspect, and hopefully it can also help us to get an idea of how to plan See, Think, Wonder if we are working towards this kind of a cognitive level of progression. Okay, but before we do this, I am going to ask us the chat. Okay, I'm going to ask us to do this for us. Okay, if I were to ask you the benefits of reading, if you could just scan this, and I'm going to ask you to put in a word or a phrase, a very short phrase, in order to indicate your personal benefit. Okay? What has reading done for you? What is your personal benefit for reading? So if you just scan that and you just key in a word or two, I think it should come up there. Let me just check on that. Okay. Oh, great. Somebody has put in vocabulary. Thank you. Ooh, more, huh? Thank you. Wow. Enlightenment. Wow, nice. Wow. Okay, we are quite equal in that sense. Okay. So if we understand the word cloud, the bigger the word is, the more of us are putting it in as it's more of the common response for most of us. So yes, that's what I was going for, getting what are our top benefits. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for being so interactive and for participating in it. So we can see from our word cloud that for more of us, knowledge is the big thing that we're getting out of reading, right? And that's wonderful. Getting knowledge, that's right. And I like this, that a lot of us are finding it fun, entertainment, right? That reading is fun, right? And if our kids can get that too, I think, wow, that will really be a plus point for us. Here's what we're going to do. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to screen you this video clip, and we're going to hear from experts weighing in on these benefits, on benefits of reading, and also what it's actually doing to our brains. Okay, so here we go.
There's nothing less natural than reading. Reading is an acquired set of skills that literally changes the brain.
Everyone should be reading books. Books are life experience, books are knowledge, books are community.
Without books, we wouldn't be human in the way that we are.
Literacy is one of the greatest inventions of the human species.
First fire, then reading, I'd say.
Reading is the blink of the eye in our evolutionary clock. It's only 6,000 years old, and it began in such a simple way to mark how many wine vessels or sheep we had. And with the birth of alphabetic systems, we began to have an efficient means of remembering and storing knowledge. What reading does is exploit a principle of design in the human brain that allows it to make new connections between visual regions, language regions, regions for thought and emotion. It begins actually afresh in every new reader. It doesn't exist inside our head. Each person who has to learn to read has to create a brand new circuit in their brain.
Reading a great story is so much more than entertainment. Reading actually has many therapeutic benefits. Bibliotherapy is the art of prescribing fiction to cure life's ailments. Claustrophobia, rage, exhaustion and the cure is Zorba the Greek.
Reading brings 3 magical powers: creativity, intelligence, and empathy. Reading for the joy of it is one of the 2 key factors in a kid's later economic success. You're more likely to not be in prison, to vote, to own your own home. All of these advantages and benefits happen as a result of literacy.
Your brain goes into a meditative state, a physical process which slows your heartbeat and calms you down and reduces anxiety.
Okay, thank you. So that's the short video clip, and I hope it has inspired us that reading really has so many benefits. And I think part of us already know of it and are aware, and subconsciously we may even be it may even be at our subconscious level as well. Okay. So, but the thing about reading and what the video was pointing out is that one of the most important or critical thing that reading does for us is making these connections, right? It actually changes our brains, right? And that's where we get all the benefits, right? In our neural connections. So what it's doing, or reading, what it does is it helps us to make connections, right? What the stimulus, whether it's a visual stimulus, whether it's word text or it's picture text, it helps us to make connections with language. And with language always comes the culture behind it. It helps us to connect with thought. It helps us to connect with emotions. So I'm going to ask you to think a little bit about STW here, okay? See, think, wonder, and to think about this in the light of making these connections. Okay? In terms of your thought and language, we see it already when we get the students to, hey, can you hang on a bit? Let's look at the picture, or let's look at this word, or let's look at what the writer is saying a bit closer. Okay, so we're already getting them to connect deeper in thought, connecting with the language, right? In the books that we read, and this element of wonder is bring it also into the realm of emotion, right? How does it make you feel, and what do you think? How can you engage with it a bit more? Okay, so I think you'll be able to see STW also cutting through, being able to support reading in terms of making all these connections as well. One of the things that the video said as well is that most of the benefits happened because of this idea of deep reading. Later on in the video, I've left the link there for us. Later on in the video, you'll also see a comparison between deep reading and surface reading, which is the digital media type of reading that a lot of our kids are very much engaged in now. Okay, so deep reading is the one that brings about a lot of the benefits that we typed in just now, as well as the benefits that the experts are also telling us, neuroscientists are telling us. Okay, and if we were to put it back in the context of STW, right, getting children to read it in this, using this thinking routine, it can help in terms of getting this element of deep reading. The very first thing about STW is already C, and it's slowing the kids down already. It's getting them to look closely, getting them to look at it slowly again, look at it closely, and then to engage deeper in thought and emotion, okay, with the stimulus. Yeah, so that's what we'd like to bear in mind. And if I were to ask you about teaching reading, right, what are the things that come to mind when I ask you about teaching reading? Okay, you probably will say these, right? Right, comprehension strategies, right? That's what we remember from our classrooms, etc. So I asked Google actually to give me, ChatGPT, right? To survey the web and to give me the 10 most effective compre strategies, right? And this is based, what they're doing for us here is to base it on general consensus and educational research, okay, on impact and applicability, okay, for defining what effective means. Okay, so top 10. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. This is what it returned. Okay, according to ChatGPT, number 1 strategy is active reading. Number 2 is questioning. Okay, but actually, if you look at these lists, this list, they are very familiar. right? Strategies that we ourselves use when we are reading, or if we are English teachers here or language teachers here, these are the very strategies that we're actively teaching in schools. Am I right? And this is indeed an important element or an important domain of teaching reading, comprehension strategy, exposing or introducing our students to these teaching strategies. Okay, and if we look at teaching reading in more recent years, it has also branched out into several areas, right? The science of reading, where we bring back the importance of phonics, word building, foundational blocks, right? Explicit instruction, early intervention, and this area also, which is receiving increasing increasing attention, right? The idea of dyslexic neurodiversity, how to support other students, right? Diverse students in terms of reading as well. Technology, of course, okay, reading for comprehension, culturally responsive, this idea, okay, with the idea that language is culturally defined as well, right? And reading across the curriculum. But what I'm saying is that there is a chance, and we have got a little bit of a sense of that idea of STW, to have this idea of this thinking routine being able to support all these various areas, right? Okay, today's one will be focusing more on comprehension strategy instruction, okay? But we're also saying that it can extend to all the other areas as well. Okay, and to do this, of course, we're going to use a story, okay? And today's story or picture book is We Are Water Protectors. And this book won the Caldecott Gold Award in 2021. And it's very much raved about for its sensitivity and its passionate message, right? For humanity and for the environment. Okay, so we will be enjoying this in a while, but before we do that, I want to just make a note about picture books. In terms of picture books, right? So I'll let you have a quick read here. Okay, so we probably already get a sense when you use picture books, at least in the Singapore context, and I'm quite sure you do it in Taiwan as well, both in your Chinese lessons as well as in your English lessons. We use a lot of picture books. It's a very rich resource for language teachers, right? And research tells us that it has impact, right? It's related also to, has a significant impact on a child's reading development, okay? And one of this thing about picture books is also this idea of multimodality. So I'm going to let you have a quick read here, and I'm going to highlight, for those of you who want to do quicker reading, I'm going to highlight the points for us. Okay, this idea of multimodality, okay, and especially so in today's context, we just have to think social media, right? A lot of it, pictures, visuals, interwoven with text, right? Okay, so in today's context, especially, it now becomes a need, right, in our communication, right, combining different modes. And picture books offer that, because picture books don't just work on the text alone. Okay, high quality picture books use a combination of modes in order to convey and in order to narrate and tell the story. Okay, and one of the ideas that's important about multimodality for us is this idea that it's socially shaped and culturally given. Okay, so this idea is important for us in the sense that all these modes, they don't just exist on its own as well, but that in picture books, right, the children are given a chance to also think about the whole meaning, the entire, both the visuals and the text, to take in the synergistic whole of the text, of the message, right? And that's a very, very powerful way of reading, right? Because you're also taking in the social nuances, right? The culturally driven motivations for the text. Okay, so having said that, we are going to look at this book, We Are Water Protectors. And in the spirit of STW, we will, of course, start off with STW. Okay, so if we were to take this to a reading lesson, you probably will hear teachers or see teachers doing this, right? We will ask our students, And even for us readers, right, when we first take a look at the cover, the thing that comes to us first is, okay, what do we see on this cover? Okay, and that's probably what we'll be asking our children. And the children will probably point out, oh, we see a row of people behind and they're holding hands. We also see a girl, she's holding a feather, right? And then we also have waters swirling around, okay? And this girl, yeah, she's right in front, right? So if we were to push them a bit, remember, push them a little bit more, remember we want to also move into or help them to go into deep reading, right? So we can also get them to think a bit further, okay, by looking at the title, We Are Water Protectors. So the title says we are water protectors. What relation does it have with all of the visual image behind all these depictions that you have pointed out? What's the connection here? What do you think? Right? So water protectors already gives us an idea that they are fighting a cause, perhaps, and they're protecting something that's important. And in this case, water is mentioned, and so therefore they are standing for water, right? As a natural element that they're trying to protect. We have the girl over here, and she's holding a feather, so very likely she might be the leader of the group, and everybody, they're holding hands. They seem to be united in this cause of protecting the water, perhaps, right? So we'll probably get into a discussion of that sort. And then we want to, if you're to use STW, we want to move a bit further, right? Okay, so just the cover page, right? And we want to move a bit further and to think about, okay, what do you think this story is going to be about, right? What with all these clues that we have, what's gonna be in this book, right? So already we're getting them to think about what the story could possibly be, right? About probably this girl's journey, probably how she's getting people to stand with her in the cause, and it's probably about protecting water or the natural resource in some way or another. Okay, now having done all this, I think you will quite likely already have noticed that we have used quite a bit of reading strategies, right? Comprehension strategies. If I were to bring you back to the, well, supposedly ChatGPT's top 10 most commonly used or, well, effective in their eyes, right? Strategies, I think you would probably be able to recognize some of the strategies that we were already using, and that's just on the cover page itself and building up STW, right? So at the very most, we were looking at the pictures, etc. Okay, we were definitely doing a lot of questioning. Okay, what's this girl doing here? Why is she standing right in front, etc. Right? We're definitely, as readers, we're already questioning. Okay, we are visualizing what's happening. Okay, and there's a lot of inferring. We have the title, we have these visuals, what's the connections between all of them, and then we are, of course, predicting as well, right? The wonder stage, right? What is this book going to tell us, right? What's this story going to be about, okay? So let's move on with the story, and here, I'm going to let you take a break to enjoy this story this morning. Yeah, I'll let you take a break, sit back, relax, while I read you this story, and then we'll return to this, okay, to explore STW further. Okay, so here we go. Okay. Water is the first medicine, Nokomis told me. We come from water. It nourished us inside our mother's body, as it nourished us here on Mother Earth. Water is sacred, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. The river's rhythm runs through my veins, runs through my people's veins. My people talk of a black snake that will destroy the land, spoil the water, poison plants and animals, wreck everything. When my people first spoke of the black smoke, they foretold that it wouldn't come for many, many years. Now, the black snake is here. Its venom burns the land, pours through the water, making it unfit to drink. Take courage. I must keep the black snake away from my village's water. I must rally my people together. Right, a bit of a resemblance to the cover page now. To stand for the water, to stand for the land, to stand as one against the black snake. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. It will not be easy. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, the winged ones, the crawling ones. The four-legged, the two-legged, the plants, trees, rivers, lakes. The earth. We are all related. Tears like waterfalls stream down, tracks down my face, tracks down my people's faces. Water has its own spirit, Nokomis told me. Water is alive. Water remembers our ancestors who came before us, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. We are stewards of the earth. Our spirits have not been broken. We are water protectors. We stand. The black snake is in it for the fight of its life. The end. And the author and the illustrator left us a note. Okay, so I'm just going to, it's too small to see, so I'm going to give you very briefly what they said in the end page. Okay, so this came up from, it's a real event that inspired the story. 2016, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, they stood up against the titans of industry, so we're told, right? So this particular company wanted to build these access pipeline right through where they're living. And this pipeline, one of the concerns that they have is that the pipeline will carry the oil, right, from one place to another, but there's the potential of leak happening, right? And that leak is going to seep or contaminate their waters, right? So that's where the people started standing up for it. And it started with just a few tribal members here, right? And then it just kept growing to more than 500 indigenous nations. Okay, they did not succeed, unfortunately. And the pipelines, the industry went ahead to build the pipelines. And sadly, it ended up contaminating their waters, right? So till today, we are told that they are still fighting this cause and they're still trying to protect as much as they can or to stand out and to say something about it, right? This contamination and destroying their waters. Okay, so this story, we are told by the author that it's really written in honor of those who stood up for this and who continue to fight on a daily basis. The illustrator also left some notes for us, right? And depicted in the illustrations, right? You have the main protagonist changing into a traditional ribbon skirt, right? When she comes in to rally the people and she goes into her traditional wear, right? Standing up for what she her identity and her belonging in her tribe, right? And most of the animals that depicted in the story also reflect clan symbols or hold special significance for this tribe, right? The repeated floral designs were also inspired by traditional woodland flora motifs, which for them is important because they are so near nature itself. So their art is drawn very much from nature. So taking this into the storytelling also brings another layer of perspective. Remember, we are talking about a new domain that's opening up for us in teaching reading. It's also being sensitized to different cultures, carried in different stories as well. And this piece of information here adds on to that story, gives it another layer, okay? Another richness, right? And then So this is for this page. And then the story ends off with this. Okay, they have, I'll let you have a quick read. Okay, so it's a pledge and it invites the child to not just read the story, but to also join in, right? To play a part in conserving, to help to protect the earth and waters, right, in the environment. Okay, so this is the entire text for the book. And now let's just return a little bit to this. Okay, so earlier on at the very start of the story, okay, if you still recall, we went through the thinking routine, and this was just the cover page. This was just the cover page, right? We talked about at this point of the story, we have not quite read the story, but we have seen the cover, the illustration, we have seen the title, right? So take a look again, okay? Take a look, children, at this cover page, and what do you see, right? Then we got them to think a bit further. Now, what does the title and all these visuals have in connection? What does this row of people at the back have in connection with this girl that's standing in front? Okay, based on the clues that we have in this text. Okay, and then also getting them to wonder about it. Oh my, really, right? To engage, to make connections with it. What do I think that the story is going to be about? What would I hope to be reading, or what would I like to read? Okay, so when we did that, we went through that thinking routine, and what we did was a very localized reading of the text. We only zoomed in on just one portion of the text. Okay, so we'll call that the micro or the localized reading. Okay, we're just looking at just that one part. And in STW, we can do that, right? We can do very micro reading in terms of the different parts of the book. And already having gone through the book, I think you will be able to see certain parts already that you can already build in your STW, significant parts of the story. And we're going to be trying that in a while's time, okay? Now, here's where I would also like to introduce us to this idea of the macro or globalized reading of the text, okay? So the difference here being that in this first micro or localized reading, we're only looking at the text in part. And deep reading is like that. Deep reading, we do a whole read, and then we can zoom in and analyze just that part, okay? But as proficient readers, this is also what we do, and this is what we help students do as well, to have that macro or globalized reading, to have that whole view of the text of the story that's being told to us. So this can happen, for example, at the end of the text, at the end of the reading, in which we can again employ a see, think, wonder routine here for our students, right? At the very start, after reading the whole text, we could be asking our children, okay? So let's return to that story, okay? Let's take a closer look at the story again. And now that we have read the text, let's see if we are able to piece the events together, okay? Can we as a class or with our children, right? Can we now retell the story using our own words, right? What were the events of the story? What went on? What happened? What was the plot like, right? So we could retell that story in that sense. We draft out a main storyline as how we comprehend or understand the text. And then we could get them to move a little bit further, right? This is after reading. So now that we have already taken in the entire reading, what is the story telling me, right? I mean, I read about this girl and how she was brave enough to rally people and to protect the natural resources of her region, right? Right. So what is it actually telling me, right? And it also will send messages. You probably in that discussion, you'll also draw out discussions like, yes, water resource, environment. They're really so beneficial for for humans, right? For humanity. But there's also a chance that we can abuse it or we can spoil it, right? For the sake of industry, for example, in the text of that story, right? We can unwittingly contaminate or we can destroy the very elements that are so freely given to us, right? Okay, and then we can get them to move just a little bit further by thinking about this, right? So now that I've read it, and remember part of the reading, we also want to connect with the children's emotions as well, right? How do I identify with that story? What does it have to do with me, right? Can I also play a part in protecting the earth? Are there things in my own region, in my own area, that I see are being abused, or people are just wasting the resources? Are there things that I can speak up for, or is there a part that I can play in where I am in order to protect the environment or Earth's resources? Okay, so this routine comes about again. And this one, what I'm trying to show you is this idea of using STW, right, for both localized reading, right? For the localized, we can do that for different parts of the reading, and we can also do it for the entire text as well, right? For proficient readers, that's what we do, right? To be deep thinkers, to be deep readers, okay, we do both the localized as well as the globalized reading, okay? So here's where we're going to give it a try, and we're going to kind of move into a localized reading of the text. And I am choosing this page of the book, okay, where this is where the black serpent has come. Remember, the black serpent was foretold, okay, by the ancestors, and it talks about the black snake. Okay, so the visual here, as well as the text here. What I'm going to get us to do is I'm going to ask us to think about, imagine if we were doing this story, imagine we're reading the story for ourselves, or imagine if we are doing it with a class, right? And just this page itself, okay, let's stop at this page. And are we able to do a see, think, wonder routine, this thinking routine, just for this page alone? Okay, what are the questions or what are the activities that we can think about in order to engage? Remember, we were talking about deep reading. Okay, so we want to go deeper into that reading, right? To draw out the benefits really of reading. So how we're going to do this is it's going to be a collective effort. I will ask you to join us. Okay, if you can scan this QR code, it will lead you to a Padlet. Okay, and the Padlet itself, yeah, unfortunately, I can't open up the Padlet here. I'm not able to open up the Padlet here on the PowerPoint itself. Okay, but what you will see is that it has 3 columns: one see, one think, and one wonder. Okay, so it's going to be a collective effort based on just this picture alone. I've left the QR code here as well. Okay, so if you didn't catch that or you lose connection with it, you can again connect back to it. And here's going to be a collective effort. And I'm just going to ask you to look at this text and having an idea of the text. What are some of the questions you will ask yourself as a reader, or some of the questions that you will ask your students in a reading class, okay, for this section? So this is your localized reading, right? For this section, what are some of the C questions that you have? What are some of the think questions that you might have? And what are some of the wonder questions that you might have? Okay, so I will give you a bit of time to input your questions or activities for these 3 columns. Okay, you can do it in parts too. Like I said, it's a collective effort. So if you do have a question that you think fits the think, you can just put it in the think column. If you have a question for wonder, you can just put it in the wonder. Okay, so now we're just collecting these different questions, sorting them out into the routine itself, and then we'll have a collective piece of thought analysis, if you may, for this page. Okay, thank you. I do see 3 responses for us already. Thank you. We have a few for the C column. Thanks. Very nice. Very nice. Oh, wow. Nice. Oh. I am liking your questions. Very nice. Mm. Ooh, very nice. Thank you. Thank you for being so participative. Very nice questions you have. I'm going to ask you to do one more thing for us, okay? We are able to see the questions. Am I correct? Am I right to say that? Okay, great. We can see everybody's right. What I've done is also to give us voting rights. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to take a look at the entire board and you are free to vote. Okay, so you just click and you can upvote as in you feel, wow, that question is really great, important for us. So go ahead and do that. Go ahead and do that. Okay, encourage your friends. Tell them that, wow, this question is wonderful. This is great. Okay. Wow. Okay. Okay. Very nice. I'm going to try to do this if I may. Let me see if I'm able to. Okay, I'm just going to capture a little bit for us. I'm sorry, I'm not able to capture all. So this is what I managed to get so far. Okay, thank you for your responses. I think it's so wonderful that that you guys are so participative. Thanks for that. Okay, so I like the questions that you are asking all already, right? At the sea level, straight away, a lot of you are talking about, hey, the black snake. We noticed there's a black snake. Okay, some of you talked about how it looked evil, etc., and that's great, right? This is a great question, right? We have some here already, right? Why is the snake drawn? It's not even in the snake shape. It's not the typical snake shape, right? Why is it drawn like that, right? And this one also, what does the snake symbolize? Maybe here in this text, right? Okay, so you have some great questions. And I too like this one. What is the black snake in your life? Gosh, I think that's a very, very powerful question, right? And that already gets them connected with the story. And can you see already that connects them? Just now we talked earlier about how the brain makes these connections and the reader gets the benefits, right? Deep reading, that brings about deep reading, okay? And the reader gets the benefits from reading through these connections. So asking these questions, right? And something like that. What is the black snake in your life? Okay, so now it's no longer just a text away from itself, away from you, away from the reader, but now the reader is making a connection with the text, right? This black snake means this to the girl, right? But there might be a black snake also in my life. And what in my area of context would that be? Okay, so here you are also drawing your thoughts and emotions, and culturally also crossing, right, boundaries, right, in the context of that tribe, and in your context, maybe as an urban city, place, etc. Okay, so that really is really very wonderful and very powerful. Thank you for your questions. I love it. Okay, now another area that I think would be wonderful for us to look at, but we won't do, I'll just leave it for us to think about, is also to do cut across, right? Cut across the text. These are refrains of the text that keeps repeating. We stand with our songs and our drums, we are still here. So through the book, it comes out, this being the first that came out, and then after a few pages this, and then another few pages this, right? It'll be a very nice place also to get the students to apply the see, think routine, right? What do you see over here in these 3 pages, right? And what do you think about it? What's the difference here? What are the differences you notice in these 3 pages, right? The colors, the number of people are different, right? What could it possibly mean in the story, right? She's drawing in more and more people, isn't that right? Okay, the color, the moods are changing. At first it's so dark and hopeless almost, and yet new life is being formed, right? And in the wonder element, right? If I were to depict this part of the story, would I also use these 3 frames? Would I also use these colors? Would I use this to show that? Are there other ways that I can depict this? Okay, you can put them in the shoes of the illustrator in order to get them to wonder as well. Okay, so what we've done is we've looked at We Are Water Protectors, looking at how we can use STW in different parts of the book, in the whole book, localized reading and macro reading, right? We looked at, and if we take a look, we're also using this frame, falling back on Bloom's taxonomy, getting them to think further, deeper about the text itself and the visuals. We also looked at this more so in this side, comprehension strategy instruction. Okay, there's also a little bit of cultural element if we were to bring that in as well. Okay, so there is a possibility of applying STW in all these different areas. Okay, and lastly, this is what we basically touched on, right? There's so much power to reading, and we can use STW in order to support our students' way of reading and get into this idea of deep reading, right? Not just surface scanning. Digital reading, they're very good at it, right? Our children, our students, they're very good at doing digital reading. But research also tells us that it can only go so far. When they do surface reading, it's a different type of reading from when they do deep reading. Surface reading brings about different results, okay? And it's digital reading tends to favor scanning, that kind of quick reading, okay? So there's a place also of picture books in the class or whatever text that we're using in the class to bring about this STW routine, okay, in order to help them to settle into a deeper reading routine. So with that, thank you so much. I will hand it back to Ivy and to Maggie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Donna. And I think we will be open the floor for some question for now, right? So let's see if any of the participants, you have any question that you would like to ask. If you do, feel free to turn on your microphone and you can ask directly. Okay. And if you wanted to put your question in the chat box, feel free to do that as well. While we are waiting for some questions, so I actually have a question in my mind while I'm listening to the speech, because we do see that picture book can serve as a very powerful tools or vehicle to teach English reading, especially for beginners or even for high school students. It could still ignite their curiosity and interest into the English reading. So how would you recommend us to find some good quality picture book? Because I do find that the picture book you selected always has a very strong connection between the pictures and the text. While the text is short, but the story is rich. So I'm curious, will you have any recommendation on where we can find some good picture books for our students?
Yes, I think you rightly pointed out that high quality picture books are very important for us. And today, actually, it's a very good problem for us because it's so highly competitive, children's literature, in today's context, that we really have no excuse. Today our challenge is to bring in the best book for our class at that point in time. Okay, so children's literature, the market out there is fantastic. Even adult writers, right, are trying to enter into that scene for children's literature because they see a very great market there. And it's wonderful for us educators because that means competition, okay, and that means high quality. So one of the places that I tend to look at, for one, we can start off, especially if we are young new teachers ourselves. One of the places that we can go for is to look out for award-winning books, right? The ones that Caldecott is one of those given out for picture books, right? I think there's also a national book and from other countries. So Caldecott is from US and it's been a long-standing award for picture books. And why I'm saying go for award-winning ones at a start, because there's a whole panel of experts looking at the pictures, looking at the books, right? And Caldecott, for example, is given out every year. Okay, so they will look at all that's published, but only in the US, okay? All that's published in last year, and then they have that panel of experts, and then they will go through it using a very strict criteria, and that's when they will start awarding. So they will give for gold, they will also give honor awards. That's Caldecott. There's also Scholastic. Scholastic also has an Asian picture book. Okay, they have an Asian branch, publishing branch as well. So that's something that we can look out for as well, closer to our heart, something that we can identify with a little bit more. So that's the Asian Scholastic. In Singapore, we do have one internal one where we call it the HABA, Hedwig Anwar Book Award. Okay, so this one is specific to Singapore, and we look at Singapore and Asian stories as well. Okay, so that's one of the ways that we can help ourselves, right? And after a while, we will see that we start developing a preference, etc., and we start having an eye for books. And by all means, yes, bring those in also into your class, because what excites you, there's a tendency that it will also that excitement will also pass on to the kids as well. Okay, so thanks for that question.
Lovely, and I've also do a quick Google search and then
yes, I saw so fast
in case any teacher wants to know about that. And I also see a question coming from Ian. He's been asking. He'd like to know more about how to implement seizing wonder in an informative or exploratory text. which I would assume for senior readers, they probably read a more textful, lengthy paragraph. So how would you recommend on that?
Okay, so let me see if this might help you frame it a little bit more. Let me run back to the first. Oh, sorry. I can actually do this here. It is true that Okay, let me do this one. Okay, so it might be helpful for us to also think about it in the area of Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, so info tags, expository tags, yes. Okay, and we do want our students to also be exposed to these different genres as well. So at what we can roughly think about in terms of talking or discussing with students, applying this STW routine might get them to see the tags at a literal level first, right? So this is the very first layer. So what do you see? What is the text telling us? What have we just read, right? What does it say? And then we could get them to move in to a higher level, which is any of these, right? They can be analyzing, applying, understanding. In our reading terms, we might want to think about it in terms of inferences. What inferences can we make, right? What is the author saying here with regard to saving the water, for example, right? That the author is said this, that there's a problem here, etc. And now the author is giving us is offering a solution, right? What is the author's intention, right? About talking about it here? Is the author putting this, for example, this first argument right up front, is the author saying that this is the most important point that we should look at, right? So we can think of it in terms of inferential, the slightly higher level here of thinking, or even in terms of the text structure, right? So we have read about the solution. Now, what do you think the author is going to write about in that next section? Okay, they'll probably tell you, oh, it's probably going to give you arguments, probably going to explain something, etc. So all that can fall under this category. Okay, and then if we want to move them a little bit higher, right, the create and evaluate part, we can get our students to start wondering. Okay, so the issue that the author has raised, okay, does it resonate with me, right? If I were in the author's context, right, how would I position this argument? Or how would I explain it so that this audience can understand? Okay, so for example, that text could be written for adults like us. How could I then rewrite it so that children can understand? There you are, getting them to wonder, create, right? Evaluate and create, and bringing it into a different terms, right? So in that sense, that's one way of thinking about STW, right? If we put it back in the Bloom's taxonomy, that might help us in order to frame our questions and still be able to apply the STW. Okay, I hope that helps.
I think this is lovely, and I also wanted to echo to that because, so I do find that for a longer paragraph, usually the teacher will probably have to serve as the observer, the first observer. We as teachers observe the structure or the pattern or the thing or the clues that we want a student to observe as well. Because sometimes it's relatively conceptual compared to the picture book. So we as an observer, as a teacher, we identify what we want the student to observe as well. And maybe we guided them with powerful questions. So I noticed that it's very powerful for teachers that we are strong observer. We are very good at asking powerful questions to really ignite the student. Yeah, to think about that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Maggie, for that, because you also pointed out something very important for us as teachers, that we model it. So we can be thinking aloud with the students, and we can also be, oh, let's look at this. To me, it looks like a black snake. I think it is if my students are not ready, right? But if they are, I would like to elicit from them and get their ideas, etc. Okay, but there are also times that we want to model to them what thinking about it looks like, what wondering about it looks like. So thanks for that, Maggie. Yes.
Yeah. So I want to close our wonderful morning session here with a couple of notes that I have taken from the speech. This is a wonderful session. I do hope that everyone can understand how powerful it is as a strong observer. Like we as educators or teachers, sometimes we want to guide the students to see a bigger world, to see something that's not so obvious, but it's also meaningful for them in the long run. So helping them to see something through our eyes, through our lens, using a couple of the technique that we have learned from today. For example, the repeating picture of the people standing in the circle, asking the student to be more observant to something that's like a repeating pattern and try to interpret the repeating pattern will be able to help them to read some signals that's not so obvious, but hidden by the writer themselves. So those are the things I think we would like to take away from here. And also, I think for a teacher, we're not just strong observer, we are also strong questioner. So we ask powerful questions. So sometimes when we prepare for our lessons, it's also to step back a little bit and think about what are the powerful questions that will ignite the student's curiosity. For example, what is the black snake in your life? So maybe sometimes before we really head on for some technical stuff we want to teach to the students, we also want to embed some of question like that to really ignite the students' curiosity. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Donna, for sharing all this inspiring stuff with us. I hope everyone learned something today. And that's the purpose for all kinds of educational activity. And thank you for spending your precious weekend morning with us. We will continue this series of speaker series starting from next year. So hopefully everyone stay tuned. And lastly, I think I still wanted to remind everyone, let me share my screen really quickly. So I still want to remind everyone that for the Seizing Wonder Challenge, we designed this to really help the student to think about how they wanted to practice their observation skills and interpretation skill of the world around them, both on the reading side and also about all the inspiration they can draw from their day-to-day life. So this challenge still open for application. If your friends, your students haven't applied for it, really encourage them to apply for that. We now have over 1,000 participants that signed up for the challenge this year, and we are really excited to kick off the actual challenge round one right after Christmas. And if you may spend like 1 minute or so, be happy that you can scan this QR code to share your feedback with us about how you like about the speech today and what are the other questions or other topic you would like to hear about from us. We would like to use this valuable input to prepare for our teacher series next year. Thank you, Donna, again. Really, thank you for coming here. And thank you, Ivy, for hosting this. Thank you, every participant. I would like to draw a final conclusion here. Thanks, everyone. We hope to see you again in our next series. Okay, so before I go, Ivy, is there anything else you would like to remind our participants?
Yeah, I think we need to do a group photo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, like, I would like to ask our participants to kindly like turn on your camera, and I will like quickly do the screenshot. Thank you. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Ivy, can we just like wait for a few seconds? Just see if anyone want to join the photo. We were happy to. You can turn on your camera right now, and we are ready to take the photo shooting right now. Okay. So for anyone who want to join the photo, feel free to turn on your camera. We're about to start
In 1 minute.
the group picture. Okay.
1, 2, 3. Okay. Nice. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Hope everyone has a fruitful morning and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks, and thanks, Donna. Hope to see you again next year. This is lovely. We'll catch up again in January. Let me send you a private email for that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.
Bye, everyone.